Ethan Hunt returns with his crew for one last mission in the 8th installment of the Mission Impossible series. Let's talk about The Final Reckoning. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the latest and I guess final Mission Impossible film. This is the 8th of the series. It's called The Final Reckoning. And originally this was going to be produced back-to-back with the 7th installment, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and it was supposed to be called Dead Reckoning Part 2. But for whatever reason, they didn't do that. I guess Paramount was like, well, let's see how the other movie does in theaters. Of course, it was a big hit. Not as big as they were hoping, though, because I think was it just 1 week after that opened? Barbie and Oppenheimer both opened, so it got a little bit lost in the shuffle, but Paramount obviously still greenlit the other one, and at some point they changed the name to The Final Reckoning. But most of the cast and crew on board here, Tom Cruise doing his own stunts like usual, and so we'll talk about all of this here in just a moment. First, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a subscriber already for Dan Reviews It, thank you so much for that. I love it when you guys return and check out my stuff. If you are not, though, please consider subscribing and click that notification bell so you get the alerts for all my new drops. And I do try to post every day, so there's always a lot going on here on Dan Reviews It. And, of course, liking this video, commenting below helps the channel out as well. All right, so this follows 2 months after the events of Dead Reckoning Part 1, and it follows not exactly the same premise, but they're sort of looking for the same thing. So essentially, Ethan is in hiding, and he gets a video message from the U.S. President, Erica Sloan, played by Angela Bassett. And she is looking to get this big key that they had in the 7th movie. It was all about getting both parts of this key in that film. And so he has it, and the government wants it, but Ethan has some other ideas with it. And I don't even want to really give away much more of the plot than that, but essentially they are going after this AI called the Entity, which we learned all about in the previous film. However, if you've never even seen a Mission Impossible film, they really get you up to speed with that because there is a lot of crossover from the first movie. The 3rd movie rears its head again in something I didn't think would happen. And obviously the last movie, there's a lot that ties in. So in fact, the main credits for this movie don't start until almost a half hour in. It's a 2 hour and 49-minute movie. It's a bit longer than the last one, but I have to tell you, for one thing, as a positive, it really doesn't feel like it. This movie, like, could have been 2 hours, and I would not have been surprised. It really, really flies by. The action sequences are well timed, you know, and sort of paced throughout. So I do have some negatives here because I don't think this one is as good as the last few installments. They've really been sort of upping their game, and the last few, you know, Ghost Protocol, Fallout, Dead Reckoning Part 1, you know, have all sort of upped their game a bit. This one falls a little bit below that, and we can talk about the reasons why here in just a moment, but I will say this was directed once again by Christopher McQuarrie. He has directed the last 3 and then this one of this series, but not only that, he is a heavy associate of Tom Cruise because he has either co-written or produced many of the recent Tom Cruise movies, including Top Gun Maverick and Live, Die, Repeat, all the way back to Valkyrie. So he hasn't done all of them, but he's done a lot. So they have a great working relationship, and he's done all of the Mission Impossibles for the last, like, 10 years. So obviously, you know, he knows how to direct for Cruise and write for Cruise, and Tom Cruise, of course, knows how to be Ethan Hunt. So this movie has a lot going for it. But I will say, so going back to sort of the you don't necessarily have to have seen any of the others because they catch you up. A lot of the first, like, 45 minutes maybe of this movie is sort of the best of Mission Impossible, or last time on Mission Impossible, and it's a lot of, like, montage sequences of what Ethan Hunt is thinking about. You can sort of guess, you know, that it's what's in his memories as certain people are mentioned, or you know, when we're listening to this video from the president, you know, we see on the screen, you know, a montage of, like, all of these stunts that he's done over the years as Ethan Hunt, and so this is certainly, I think, going to really be the last movie in the franchise, and why not go out on a fairly high note? I do think that this probably is my favorite action franchise. I was thinking about this during the film a little bit. Way better than the Fast and Furious movies. Certainly better than like the Equalizer. John Wick is fairly consistent as well. But I like these movies more. And I think overall they are more consistent, maybe. John Wick dips for me a little bit in the second and third installments. I guess the MCU, but if that had ended with Endgame, maybe that would be the best, but the last few years have not been good. So, like, in terms of consistency, I would have to rewatch the second one again, because I remember not loving that. But I just rewatched the first one last week, and I'm glad I did, because it really factors in. Like I said, they will catch you up, but I hadn't seen that since it was in theaters almost 30 years ago. So I was glad to rewatch that before seeing this. But they're all this really high quality, and the last few have been like in the A minus range. I think maybe that last one I even teetered on an A. I mean, it's such a quality franchise. So I really hope this kind of is the last one, because they do go out with a bang with it. But again, you don't necessarily need to have seen anything, because they really, really catch you up with those montages, and it's sort of like a, hey, haven't we been this great franchise all along? And you as the viewer are supposed to say yes. And it certainly worked on me, because I do believe it's probably my favorite of the action franchises. So there's a few negatives I have here with this, which we will talk about, I guess, before I get into some more of the positives. And some of them are nitpicks, maybe, I don't know. There's a few things I don't want to reveal, just sort of some plot things and character things that may reveal too much about the plot, that I don't necessarily love. But the biggest one that I can say, that if you saw Dead Reckoning Part 1, maybe you'll agree with me, or maybe you already know. Esai Morales returns as the villain here. And I just think in a handful of scenes, he's a decent villain, but in the seventh one and in this one, in a handful of scenes, he just becomes this very cartoony villain with the over-the-top laugh and the over-the-top faces. And it comes in this movie in one of the final fight sequences. And if you know anything about the stunts going into this movie, there's a big airplane scene. That's all I will really say about it. We know that a big part of going to these movies is seeing Tom Cruise, do these stunts for real and all of that. So I won't reveal too much more about it, but it comes sort of in this airplane scene. And he's just so over the top that it takes me out of it. Now, Nicholas Hoult was actually supposed to be the villain in both films. And before they started shooting number 7, I guess scheduling-wise didn't work out. I don't know if he wouldn't have been doing Mad Max at that point. But whatever he was doing, he's always doing like 2 or 3 movies a year. So he was unavailable. So they got Esai Morales, who is fine, but I do think he's a little cartoony sometimes. Also, they get a little too technical sometimes with some of the jargon. You got to kind of dumb it down for me a little bit. Fast and the Furious is certainly not a great franchise, but they definitely dumb things down for their audience. But the good thing with that is, with these Mission Impossible movies, is they explain it over and over, because they have to sort of tell several different people what the plan is along the way. And so eventually I'm like, oh, okay, I think I get what they need to be doing. So that's definitely, a kind of a positive and a negative, I suppose, because they come back around the more they talk about it. But you have some newcomers here, including Nick Offerman. I don't think we've seen him before in the series. Hannah Waddingham, we have definitely not seen her in the series before, and she has a great American accent. I never would have known, that she has a very thick British accent in real life. But some other people returning: Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Haley Atwell, of course, a lot of the, the team. Pom Klementieff, Henry Chersey, Janet McTeer, I believe, is a newcomer. Holt McElhenney, we've seen him before. Shea Wingham, we've seen him before. So a handful of people that are new to the series, but also a lot of our old favorites. The stakes are high, certainly. Probably, well, definitely the highest that they've been so far in any Mission Impossible series. I think in 7, it was explained to us how bad the entity is, as we're calling it. But I don't think it's described as it is in this movie, where it's basically like sort of world dominating and perhaps world ending and human race ending. And so the stakes had never been higher. And yeah, as you know, to go back to some of my positives, this movie does not feel like it's nearly 3 hours, not by a long shot. It really flies by. Ethan Hunt, doing, or Tom Cruise, I should say, doing his running bits. He runs a lot. That's always a classic for Ethan Hunt, and for Cruise in general. And also a lot of taking off of the shirt. We saw Tom Cruise's body probably 5 times in this, maybe 6. And we get it. He's like 62 or something. He's in amazing shape, and he wants to show that off. All right, maybe a little gratuitous sometimes, sure. But yeah, I mean, look, this is a great way to end a fantastic series. It's wild to me that the first one was 30 years ago, and they make May 22nd, 1996 was the premiere date of the first movie. That is a plot point in this version, and this one came out on May 22nd as well for the Thursday night premiere. So May 22nd, very special to the series, but they actually made it a plot point from 1996 as they tie in some of the things that happened in that first movie. It's very, very well done. I leave it just sort of a hair below a lot of those recent entries. I leave Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning with a B+. This is one to see in theaters. It's in theaters now. It's doing pretty well. It had the highest opening of any of the Mission Impossible films. It did not debut at #1 because it came out the same weekend as Lilo and Stitch, but it's still doing very well, and hopefully you have a chance to see it in its full glory. IMAX, if you could do it. I don't have an IMAX near me, so I did not do that, but I imagine this would look amazing in the IMAX with all the stunts and the action sequences. All right, another winner for the Mission Impossible series. Thank you so much for watching Dan Reviews It, and I will see you next time. Bye.